There's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the member show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, GuMPers.
Hola, bom dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show. How are you today? Tudo bem? Como estás? Give yourself a nice round of applause, will you? Yes! Oh, on second thoughts, keep the noise down. A very excellent Good Morning Portugal Wine Club gathering last night. A little bit fragile this morning, I have to say, although that's being made better by a nice cup of British tea and plenty of water this morning. But thank you to everybody who tuned in and those who stuck around for the lock-in as well afterwards. I think we did Vinho Verde Proud. In fact, if you missed it last night, here's a little video. It's only 30 seconds of the joy, to me, the Portuguese joy that is Vinho Verde wine that I think is increasingly and better known around the world. But we do seem to keep the best of it here. And there were, I don't know, at one point, maybe nine households on the screen, and each had a different Vinho Verde varietal. I think they enjoyed themselves. So here's a little bit more background information.
As cores do verão, os tons bronzeados e o salmão, com todos fica bem. Um verde leve e fresco claro, mas o ano não acaba no verão. Com o outono chegam os laranjas, as castanhas, os verdes mais encorpados e intensos. No inverno, com o vermelho e os dourados, sai um verde complexo e estruturado. Chegam as cores da primavera e os verdes elegantes e aromáticos. Descubra os novos verdes, mais ricos e estruturados, que pode até guardar para abrir mais tarde. Há um verde para cada momento.
How about that? Bit early, maybe. Drink responsibly, everybody. I think we did that last night. A real giggle last night. So if you want to watch that, if you want to grab your own bottle of Vinho Verde and watch along, you can find that, of course, on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much to all the wine ninjas yesterday evening. Really good time. And if I may dwell there for just a moment and share with you my little charcuterie board that I made to go with my tasting, because it has black bread. Now look at this. I'd not seen this before. Went to the supermarket to buy my Vinho Verde yesterday and made his little charcuterie selection. So that a tabua, I think you would say in Portuguese, and quite mild flavors. Didn't want to get anything too strong to fight the Vinho Verde. And black bread, not like a pumpernickel or a rye bread, but actually like a pão de avó, a normal sort of spongy bread that you would get in a Portuguese bakery, but made with charcoal, I think. So I am charcoal activated this morning, which I think possibly can only be a good thing, right? If you think about how charcoal is used by human beings to eliminate certain odors. I'll check with Mrs. M if that's true a little bit later on. She's not joining us this morning. And not because she's having a hungover lion, but little Min is not so well and had a bit of a disturbed night. So I was drinking quite late into the evening, had a disturbed night. So it's a wonder I'm here at all this morning, but very glad to be here. And although I may appear somewhat fresh on the screen, inside I feel like this. Look, that's a picture that the doc, or Leona may have sent us that. That's the doc. It looks a bit like your grandma, doesn't he? There, I think he may have in that picture where he seems to have lost all dignity and allowed people to take candid photographs of him. I think he may. That wasn't from last night. I think that was from another drinking session. But that's how I'm feeling on the inside. Maybe you are too. Let's see what we can do about that this morning. It is the Departure Lounge, of course, and Mamabear Em Mamabear McGowan will be joining us at 9. And she's joining us from her new place, where I think between you and me, folks, she needs a little bit of help settling in over there. So let's see what we can do for Mama Bear, and we'll have a little look around her new homestead because she has moved since we last saw her. And soon after she joins us, and here for the whole hour, because he's quite the exciting guest, I got to say, is David, the NakedPastor Hayward. And if you go to his website, which is nakedpastor.com, which conjures up all sorts of images, doesn't it? It could be an Italian recipe site, NakedPastor. It could be nudist men of the cloth, or without nudist men without any cloth on. And in this instance, it is art that starts honest conversations about life, healing, and spirituality. So looking forward to having David with us, who's joining us, I believe, from Canada, really early. And around, I don't know, he seemed to be saying it would be 6 o'clock his time, or even 5 where he was this morning, probably 5. So we're looking forward to speaking to David, the naked pastor. No naked, not like the last time I had a naked guest and decided to be naked myself, and then my guest turned up fully clothed. Won't be falling for that little ruse again this morning. So thank you for being here. Let's have a look. Let's see who's in. T-Duck is in. No T-Duck rating this morning. Maybe he's not doing that anymore, and there's no code to crack. But there are some lovely dad jokes this morning, so let's star those up for Mamabear McGowan a little bit later on. Maybe David Hayward as well. We have a Hugh New and a Portuguese saying and a deep thought to come from the T-Duck. God Squad, Ian Turner, Coach Turner is also here this morning. Let's oh my goodness, what's going on here? A best friend collapsed at home due to a major cardiac arrest. Oh my goodness. All right. Let me just see what you're saying there then, Coach Turner. This sounds serious. Bon dia GuMPer's a rather different post from me today. More of a serious thread than a God Squad tip. Okay, well, got you there, Coach Turner. On Saturday, one of my best friends collapsed at home due to a major cardiac arrest. This was caused by a blood clot in his heart. He is currently under sedation in hospital, and we should find out more today. I'm so sorry to hear that. The reason I mention this is that Dave, not his real name, has never really exercised and was overweight, so had a much higher likelihood of heart problems. And like me, T-Duck, very sorry to hear about your friend. I've been hearing this exact same story more and more lately, says T-Duck. The other issue, which may have contributed, is he caught COVID a couple of months ago. There is increasing evidence that COVID causes microclotting in the blood. So my advice is build up your fitness. And if you had COVID recently, ask your doctor to check for any clotting. There are tests available, apparently. Now, this is interesting, this research. If you look at John Campbell's latest work, Coach Turner, a major study from, it's so confusing. I hear research and counter research. You would think, wouldn't you? The science, if you follow the science, it settles it. But it would appear a major Israeli study about myocarditis shows that COVID isn't responsible in this way for myocarditis. It just leaves one a little confused, doesn't it? But thanks, Thunder, says Coach Turner. And yeah, lots of love to Dave. Not his real name, but I hope you get some good news and that Dave makes a recovery, a good recovery, Coach Turner. I may even turn to you, of course, for some help in being a little bit fitter. I'm often a bit of a wake-up call can do exactly that, can't it? If we've been a little bit complacent. Maybe now's not the time to be chiding Dave with such advice, but he needs to make a recovery first, doesn't he? But a wake-up call can help in these sorts of situations. So yeah, lots of love to you, Coach Turner, family and friends in that particular community over there. James is here as well this morning. Bon dia, GuMPers. Feliz terça todos. ¿Cómo estão? And a cue this. Let's do that now, because I think it's going to get busy later on today. So let's do these so that we don't forget them. Carpe diem. Wayne's here as well. Cue this then. Love is not a mere sentiment. It's a verb, isn't it? It's not a rationalized abstract thing. If it's going to be real, it's love in action. Anyway, but let me not steal the thunder of the Thunder Duck or the Rabindranath Tagore here. Love is not a mere sentiment. It is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. And I think it behoves us, and it's always nice to be able to use the word behoves, isn't it? But it does behove us at the moment to remember that love conquers all. Love is all you need, etc., etc. It is a bit of a cliche. Many sentences, songs, phrases, pithy bits of wisdom do sound a bit of a cliche, don't they, where love is concerned? But it's time to revisit that, is it not? Love will get us through just about anything. Well, I think our love will get us through everything, as we'll find out with Em Mamabear McGowan. And thank you for that. James promoting Rabindranath Tagore's sentiment there, that love is not a mere sentiment. It is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation. When you put it like that, and a Yogi Berra quote of the day, well, does this involve love? No, even Napoleon had his Watergate. Yes, very good. Yogi Berra. You're amazing. Bon dia then from Wayne. Haven't looked outside yet, but it rained a lot during the night. Did it? Oh my goodness. And Stephen and Jean and Baddy, Bayrandi, Nigel, all here as well this morning. Thank you for being here. Tell a friend to tell a friend. This is the cheerful start to the morning here in Portugal. And let's spread those love vibes across the Iberian Peninsula, throughout Europe and around the world. We're here with open hearts and open minds here. Not so open that everything comes in and falls out again. But yeah, open-hearted, open-minded, I would like to think. The cheerful start to the day, the Good Morning Portugal show. Talking of rain throughout the night, I was out with the dogs this morning and looked up into the sky and was blessed with this, looking up my street. Took a few photos of the rainbow. This is the better one. And lovely to see this at the end of my Truman Show street there. That's where we live. That house just on the left there is having some major work done to it. I was thinking, okay, this drilling is going to stop about 2 weeks ago, and it's there can't be any walls left inside. There must be so many holes in there now that it's barely being held together by its external structures, like an exoskeleton of a house. It's incredible the amount of work they're doing in that house. But anyway, they've got a rainbow over it. You can't pay for that. A natural phenomenon, and not the only rainbow to be spotted in San Martino recently. Here's another one. Thank you, Anne, for this one. Not this morning, another one. That looks like a great big cannabis bush in the foreground there. No tomatoes on that bad boy, despite 6 months of growing. Anyway, who doesn't like a bit of a bush first thing in the morning? And talking of cozy, or looking at cozy autumnal scenes, Deagle, good morning to you. Where's Deagle this morning? And we have his lovely picture here of his continent white chocolate that he's taken home with him to enjoy by the fireside. Dogs are smart, aren't they? That dog knows what he's doing there in front of the fire. Fire lit, a cup of coffee in hand in his Portuguese mug, e hora do café. So it's coffee time in the Deagle household with a bit of white chocolate as well. Love that. Thank you very much. Other beverages were available over the weekend, as well as last night on the Wine Club. Here's a lovely cheeky shot from Lord Gilchrist, Andy. Thank you, Andy, for this. Some folks who've rode to the pub at Gulgal at the weekend, the Gulgal Horse Festival. We talked about that last night a little bit. People had a great time who went along with Philomena to Gulgal at the weekend. It continues throughout the week this week, and there are some, I think, mainly gentlemen, perhaps not. Some riders there anyway, stopping outside and in and having a cheeky beverage. That looks like the way to go to the pub. And then if you get really the worse for wear, your horse will probably just take you home. In a way that probably a Tesla can as well. You can probably sit in the passenger seat of your Tesla, can't you, after you've been out for a drink, or on the back seat and just say, home car, take me home, as I think people may have done with horses back in the day. But that's a lovely shot. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Your horseback beers picture there from Gulgal from the weekend. Okay, what else is being said? Carl, there may not be agreement yet on the COVID science, but having a blood test is surely a sensible precaution. Yes, if you're not ill, you haven't had enough tests. Only joking. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Do what you got to do. If you feel in any way concerned, it is definitely the right thing to do, to take some action for sure. Ian, thank you for that. Suze is in as well, as is Marcus. What face today, Marcus, I wonder. I think did you send me one after the show yesterday? A very interesting face from you yesterday, which I, for the life of me, can't. Oh, yes, I can. Yesterday's face was the, what is this? Sheo no quero. Sobremesa face best made with a hand over your belly. It is the great face of satisfaction, which I can bring to your screen right now. Thank you very much for these. We will get these up on our website. Oh, talking of the website, let's go to the news on the website. And thank you, by the way, T-Duck, for your recent counsel on the website. It's quite new to me. Well, actually, no, I've been making websites ever since websites began. There you go. There's the full belly face with a slightly accentuated blowing into the cheeks, as if to say, blimey, I couldn't eat another morsel. Couldn't eat a wafer thin mint face there in Portuguese. Eu não quero sobremesa. Thank you very much for that, Marcus. And I said, yeah, we'll get those up on our website. And yeah, I've been making websites since, I don't know, maybe the year 2000, one way or another. And I continue to make websites, including our very own goodmorningportugal.com website, where we have this news selection. And it is getting quite crowded. Never have I made a website so busy and with so much information. It seems every day I get inspired to think, oh, I must add that to the website. The GuMPer gallery being the notable inclusion recently. But I was putting a couple of news items up this morning, which I'll share with you now. Look at that. If you go to goodmorningportugal.com, and this is what T-Duck was talking to me about. It's getting a little bit clunky and cluttered. Maybe need some help with the navigation. It was fine when we only had a few things, but now we've got loads of stuff, and it's getting, I mean, that is the great challenge of making a website, isn't it? Is making it easy to use and navigate. And I think things are getting out of hand over there. Let me know for yourself, goodmorningportugal.com. But I have hooked up analytics, which is something I've never done. And we seem to have a lot of new users and people from all over the world. So that's lovely to see. And that's developing very nicely. News then from James this morning. Thank you very much, James. And you'll see the lovely face of Mia Esmeras there. 5 new Portuguese films on Netflix, says James. 4 in European Portuguese, 1 in Brazilian. Yay, more language learning opportunities and some more new content to watch. It's a win-win there. So thank you very much for that. Next news item. And I saw this just flashed past me. I was thinking, hold on a minute, there's something in the air, isn't there? This idea of using expatriation and turning it into personal growth. This is a workshop by Simone Torres Costa, who I think will join us. The agenda for this on, when's the date of this? Yes, December the 2nd, forgive me. Yes, December the 2nd. That's the first Saturday, I believe, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. No, or is that a Friday? Anyway, it's the 2nd of December, between 9 and 10 in that lovely hotel, the Sana Silver Coast Hotel in Caldas de Rainha, between 9 and 10:15. Who am I? Good question to ask in any workshop, right? Coffee break. And then after that, where am I going? Who am I then and where am I going? Turning expatriation into personal growth. We are part of a movement, folks, aren't we, who are digging deep and asking a few internal, personal questions about what it means to be moving country. And Simone Torres Costa, MSc psychologist, MBA, ICF certified coach, certainly part of that move as well. In the news, our own newsletter there. See, when you write your own news, you can include your own newsletter, and sent out the newsletter as I do every Sunday night. If you haven't subscribed, please do. That's our postcard from Portugal, which is a little bit of a summing up. Also, we've only done, I think, 3 episodes of that, and it's finding its feet. What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? We did something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, because that is what Mary McCarthy said a Portuguese town was like a bride in all her finery. So we had something old, new, borrowed, and blue in that postcard from Portugal newsletter edition on Sunday evening. Subscribe via our news page here that I'm showing you. And look, it's Rafael Dufuria. He is not your average globetrotter, and he feels a little bit that there's something off with the new digital nomad visa, which he talks about in his latest video. Maybe not his latest, it might be his penultimate, but certainly that's been on his mind, and he's been getting it off his chest. NYAG, not your average globetrotter, episode 268. And of course, we have the video there of my conversation with Gilda. We're having another one of those tonight between 9 and 10. And the golden visa. It's all about the golden visa this week with Antonio Costa at the weekend saying his days are numbered. Was that a little bit of political saber rattling? Was he just trying to speak to his echo chamber of socialists and giving the golden visa a bit of a bashing in public at Web Summit? Let's find out tonight with Gilda. And at 11 o'clock, another conversation I'll be having this evening. Yes, 11 o'clock this evening. It's a sandwich of live streaming today. And 11 o'clock tonight, the man in the Mino will be with me from 11, talking about the same. And it will be gloves off for Antonio Barbosa tonight, talking very frankly and openly about his view of Portuguese politics. And within that, a discussion about the golden visa. And I think we'll be joined by Michael Maxwell from EQTY, who has a really nice golden visa investment portfolio opportunity. I'm not sure what description you would use, but when I spoke to Michael, I was very impressed with his approach towards the golden visa and other investment opportunities in Portugal, specifically in Lisbon, actually. So worth tuning in for that tonight. That is a Portugal Club presentation this evening. And scrolling down a little bit further, not much more news to share with you. Well, have a look for yourself, see what you think. But anyway, we've got Andy Klein's latest videos. We've got a nice name check, as I showed you yesterday, in his latest Our Expat Journey. They're a great series. 15 down the rabbit hole, 16 how to do new stuff. And that is choosing your migration avatar, migration as gamification there. Very nice way of looking at it. And just finally then, our mate Miguel AC, as he calls himself on Facebook. He's the guy who does wonderful. We spoke to him once on the show. Did we? we certainly mentioned him, and he does wonderful tours in the Silver Coast area. Grew up around Foz de Rel. Yes, we did speak to him, didn't we, about that? He grew up around there. He's an IT guy now turned outdoor guide, and I think that's a lovely turn to have taken in his life, in his career. And he organises here, in this instance, a walk to discover the island of Peniche. Who doesn't like a bit of Peniche first thing in the morning? And he's taking a tour there, but he does all sorts of tours around the Obidos Lagoon, along the coast here. He's quite the guy, and I think you can go kayaking, hiking, all sorts of things with Miguel. So do support him. He should be in a GuMPer store. I don't think I've got a link to him yet, but I will put that. Reminds me to put one into that link. Another job to do on the website there, but a historical niche day out. Niche, see, putting the niche into Peniche, or is it the other way around? Putting the Peniche into the niche of rambles and hikes and walks under the careful and considerate eye of Miguel, who will take you on that trip there. So you can find out more about that. Click through to it to intertidal.pt, intertidal.pt, and find out more about that and other experiences, days out that you can have with Miguel. I love our news page and would really appreciate it if you sent me any news you have of a cheerful, independent, and community nature for the GMP news desk there. Other news in there, Man in the Mino, his article about Costa's golden visa bombshell. There's a link to that. His quite frank article about that, and the good he feels that the golden visa has done for Portugal, as well as indie publications coming together for the love of Portugal. That will be Portugal Living magazine and Relish. We'll speak to Ivan. We'll speak to Bruce, editors, founders of both of those publications, here on the show in due course. Not today, but for another time in the future. In fact, it's funny, isn't it, when we say, for another time in the future, it can only really be in the future unless Elon is working on something to take us back into the past. We're quite capable of going into the past ourselves, aren't we, at a moment's notice, quite frankly. But anyway, let's get more deeper, meaningful after 9, when we have Em Mamabear McGowan joining us, along with the naked pastor, David Hayward. Let's see what else you're saying in the comments. Bon dia from Stephen. Let me just have a quick sip of my tea. Bear with. That's a nice. It was Death and Dying Day, and that was quite a big bit of dead air for you there, right there, and a great visual of man drinking cup of tea on live stream, breaking broadcasting boundaries. Stephen, how are you? Hola, bon dia, Algria, do New Jersey this morning from Jean. My New Jersey accent is as good as my Valley girl, isn't it? New Jersey. Barry, hola, bon dia. How are you? When are you back in the country, or are you just waiting until they have sorted everything out of the house there, Barry? Good morning to you. Barandi, bon dia todos, from a pant like warm and damp Bayrada. Ew, really, Andy? And actually, yes, there is another thing. We've got the GuMPer blog now, the first of which is Andy's trip to the Santiago de Compostela. Now, I'm going to copy that and put it into the chat, because that's the first blog. If you have a blog in you, which can be quite uncomfortable, let's face it, and you would like it published, but you haven't got your own site, and you would like a little bit of help with that, well, we've done that for Andy. Not that he wanted us to. He was just sending me so many pictures and videos. I thought this warrants being a part of a blog, quite frankly. So I've done that. That's gone into the comments. And let me show you what it looks like as well. Thank you very much. The all new GuMPer blog. No wonder the website is looking so complicated and it's hard to navigate. This is when the Portuguese went to Spain, Bayrada's Andy, and the Spanish Fatima, he's calling it there. So there's our first blog, our first guest blog from a GuMPer. If you have pictures, video, and something to say about somewhere you've been, like Coach Turner, I think is going to give us a little bit of background on the training hotel that he went to. But there you go. Very happy to do that as well. That's the GuMPer blog. That's new and hidden because of my navigation on the website. The Israel study is only a 4-month follow-up from infection. Okay, interesting. Thank you for that, Stephen Wells. And morning all, says Nigel Henry. Good morning to you, Nigel. They did not look to see if there was any correlation 6, 9, or 12 months later. Okay, well, I guess that's all. That's all part of the white heat of research, isn't it? And the leading edge of science at the moment. Data still coming in, of course, and it'll be interesting to see what's going on there. Paul Richards, greetings from the Algarve. Carl, don't forget your sunglasses when you come here on Friday. We have sun down here. Really? In the Algarve? Well, I'm looking forward to being there on Friday. And yeah, I didn't mention that in the news, did I? It was on Friday. I'm the guest of Serenity on a panel which I think is going to be a lot of fun and very informative, of course, as well, which is the whole idea. The invitation is to Tribulum, a restaurant in Almansil, and there will be an informal light and informative. Yeah, well, informal and informative. Are you getting the gist of how helpful this is going to be? Healthcare and health insurance, long-term rentals and buying a house in Portugal, legal and financial aspects of real estate financing and mortgages. And myself, along with Michael Averbook, Dr. Michael, who of course you've seen me with in the morning, so to speak, a real estate agent, Michael Nevish, and Jeremy Klingers from Mortgage Direct will be getting together and helping on all those subjects in Almansil on Friday. I will put something up about that on the news desk. It's not just bright in the Algarve. I can see Mama Bear getting ready to talk to us in central Portugal. It's really bright in central Portugal. Am I living in the only rainy part of Portugal this morning? So quickly, then a few more shout outs and a bit more info coming in, I think, about COVID research this morning. Seems to be where we're focusing. What's this? So my advice. Oh, that's going back a little way there. I've lost my place in the chat. Carl, there may not be agreement yet on COVID science, but having a blood test is surely a sensible precaution. We did that, and you're right. Won't be seeing lunar eclipse. It's snowing. Just sent pics of snow. Oh, my goodness. And hi all from Suze. Thank you very much. And it's a dom deer. What is a dom deer? That sounds, I'm not sure I'd even want to know what a dom deer is. Is it a Portuguese thing that after building something, they then take to the hammer drill? Is that, maybe it is. It certainly is across the road from me this morning. I won't be making the show tomorrow, says James. I'll be doing a bit of traveling up the coast, a bit with Nuno and Anna, interested in exploring a lovely little bay just west of Alfazarão. Wonder where that might be. Well, have a nice time. Wherever it is you're going, James. Questions? Are you live on YouTube? Can't find it. Yes, well, I hope so. That's the plan. We are live on YouTube, aren't we? Other folks. Yeah, most people are watching on YouTube, Nigel. What's going on? Why do people struggle so hard to find things on YouTube? Have I fallen foul of the algorithm or Elon Musk or something this morning? Bon dia, Carl. It's rainy in Foz do Aurélio this morning. Says St. Catherine. Good morning, St. Catherine. Have you come to have a look at the naked pastor, you cheeky thing? Morning, Colin, from Ian as well. I think I've got a bit of video, haven't I? When Colin and Ian met up at that Autodromo meeting. I'm a bit behind with my work, like the man who sat on the bacon slicer. So yes, I wouldn't mind a prompt from you, Rugby Colin and Ian Turner, on that. What did I not show? Sun's out in the Algarve. All right, Algarve people, calm down. We know the sun shines down there. Morning, Victoria. Flying back on the 23rd of this month. Flights booked and cannot wait. We'll be working from tomorrow at this hour, so I'll miss the show live stream for the next week, but cannot wait to get back. We showed some pictures of Iceland. Have you got any tips when it comes to tourists coming to Iceland, Baddy? I think the Austin household would like those. Well, excellent. That's a fantastic start this morning. Yes, hi, Victoria from Coach Turner. Original God Squad in the house. Just Rebel Mama missing from that lineup this morning. And I think we've covered everything so far. Talking of covering things, we are not covering the truth this morning. We are daring to talk openly and freely about death and dying, and anything actually about the truth of life. And that's why we have the naked pastor with us this morning, and Em Mamabear McGowan. Let's give them a nice round of applause and bring them onto the screen. Hello, folks. How are you this morning?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, so good, David. Thank you for being here, fully clothed. It's not you that's naked. It is the truth that will be naked in the next hour. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, bring it on.
Bring it on. Take it off and bring it on, if that makes sense. And as I'm sure it will as we speak at this hour. And thank you so much, Mamabear Em McGowan, for introducing us to David. I think you're quite excited to be here and having this conversation. Am I right?
Absolutely. I've been following the NakedPastor's work for a long time. I love his art. He brings absolute truth to things. He challenges things that people didn't usually dare to challenge. And he's absolutely a living inspiration. So coming to you on your things, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are, it's coming to you full force, and you're not going to get more naked than this. Even with your clothes on.
That's quite a promise this morning. So, Em, thank you so much for the introduction. We'll be chatting here for an hour or so at this. Should I use this phrase? This ungodly hour for you, David. What time? Where are you, and what time is it for you?
It is 5 a.m. I'm in Eastern Canada, so I'm on the other side of the Atlantic.
Wow! Thank you so much for you look very fresh for 5 in the morning, if I may say so.
I'm an early riser, so.
Yeah, we do like an early riser here, first thing in the morning on the Good Morning Portugal show. Mamabear McGowan is in a field with a washing machine behind her, I noticed. What is going on there? Have you moved since we last saw you?
I've moved. Yeah, this is now my home. And so hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, can you see?
Can I show that picture you sent me this morning?
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
all right.
So here we are.
There's a geodesic dome there, yurt. Oh, there it is in real life. Okay, sorry, go on, carry on. Give us the tour, Emma.
It's let's see, that's the kitchen. Over there is the bedroom. There's the rescue dog, Elsa. Can you see Elsa? I don't know if you can. And then the washing machine. And here we are on a little bench. Thank goodness it's sunny. And I won't show you the power setup. So we'll keep that to ourselves, Carl.
I think one of the first questions this morning is the washing machine plumbed in?
No, but it could be possible with that weather.
By this afternoon. Okay. So you're settling into your new land, I think in central Portugal. You're the great helper of other people, Em. And it looks like you might need a little bit of help at the moment, settling in, a few things to do on the land there. What sort of help do you need? And let's put it out to our community this morning.
Okay, I'd really like a spoon, right? Because I've got a knife and a fork and a veg cutting knife, and eating porridge with a fork is quite a challenge. So if someone's got a spoon and there's somewhere near Loza in Castelo Branco, awesome. Because somehow the spoons have gone. And I'd really, really like a hand just getting stuff done. It were well and truly off grid here. It's beautiful, even when it's raining. I think we've got some for a few days, but if anyone's wanting to come and help stick some fences up so we can get there's another rescue dog, a rescued goat that thinks he's a dog's come in as well. Some rescue guinea pigs are on the way, so it's getting everything ready so we can bring them all in, and then we'll have a set up space where people can just drop in if they want to talk. At which point the teepee will not be the kitchen. It will be the holding space where we can all just sit and do like Death Cafe drop-ins and things.
In the middle of the countryside, because I can hear the birds singing. It sounds like a thoroughly appropriate place to ground and be connected to nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's absolutely the floor's soaking wet through, and I'm walking around barefoot. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. So you despite not having a spoon and the washing machine not plumbed in yet, you're enjoying yourself in the countryside there.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is your dream, isn't
it? Yeah.
Oh, good for you. This is your dream, to be living out there in the countryside and to be welcoming people ultimately. And as you say, hosting a Death Cafe from time to time, and really just holding space, holding people and letting them be free and truthful, authentic and vulnerable. So what a wonderful thing you're doing. The least we can do is find a spoon for you somewhere. Come on, get this woman a spoon. To Castelo Branco. Right. Okay, we'll come back to you in just a moment, Em, and talk more about the Departure Lounge, because it's been great to be able to create the space for this conversation about death and dying, not just here in Portugal, but it's obviously a universal, ubiquitous theme, and we are talking about it openly. And I believe you do this on the subject of death and dying, as well as many other things. Can we hear your backstory, please, David Hayward? Formerly a pastor, now an artist.
Yeah, I pastored different churches for, I'd say, probably about 30 years. Then it got to the point where I felt in order for me to continue on my own journey, it was necessary for me to leave the ministry and the church. And I put 100% of my energy into a blog I'd been running called NakedPastor. Now, the reason why I called myself that is because, as you can see, I'm fully clothed, but I wanted people to see behind the curtain what really goes on in the ministry, what goes on in the church. I just wanted to be honest with my life, not just all the wonderful meetings and potlucks and great messages, sermons, and coffee and donuts and music and everything. I wanted people to see the struggles, the conflicts, the doubts, the fears, everything. So that's why I called myself the Naked Pastor. It's just me being honest, transparent, open. I found people really resonated with it because it was real, and people appreciated the honesty and the transparency, the vulnerability. Yeah. And I found in about 2006, I'd been an artist ever since I can remember. I grew up in a home where my dad painted and things like that. I decided to try my hand at cartooning, and it took off. I mean, people just really responded to the cartoons I drew, and they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I really appreciated the speed at which they communicated and the effectiveness of the message. It really, I found the cartoons I draw either really upset people or really encourage people, made some people angry and make some people laugh. Yeah. And I just really appreciated it. Yeah, there's quite a few you're showing there.
Yeah. Em, I'm just gonna. You've got a bit of wind this morning. You should have had charcoal bread like me yesterday. So I'm just going to mute you for a moment so that we can hear David. But this work is fantastic. Love these cartoons here. Recently I saw the movie He Won't Get Far on Foot. I think.
Oh, yeah.
What an amazing John Callahan, right?
Yes. That's great.
So the pair of you with your excellent cartoons, upsetting people and delighting people in equal measure. I think you're onto something, aren't you, when you get that same level of...
Well, I hope so.
Well, this mug, dear God, like what the... is maybe one of the ones that upset people. This work is beautiful. So folks, do please go. And you ship all over the world as well. Just so people know that. NakedPastor.com. I want to ask you about that transition though, David, because was it just like turning a switch off? Did you say, okay, that's it, I'm no longer a pastor, I'm going to be an artist now? Or was there a transition? Did you find yourself becoming more and more unpopular within the church, as it were, by being more authentic and vulnerable?
It got to the point where, in fact, I'm going to be talking about this today on my blog, but it got to the point where the church was beginning to interfere with my progress, and I couldn't let that happen anymore. I love the church. I appreciate the church. I consider the church my spiritual mother, my spiritual home. My roots are there. I respect my roots, but I can't let them limit me. Wow. And I was just at that point where I would thrive more in outside of the ministry. I'm sure people can understand when you're in the ministry, you're in a kind of a fishbowl of observation. And I just felt I wasn't free enough to explore, and what that often means is maybe drifting a little bit from what people think is orthodox in terms of theology. And I just felt I had to finally make that step. Now, getting to that point took maybe years of trying to figure out, if I still belonged. But the final step was a very quick decision. It happened overnight. And and leaving the ministry. It wasn't easy. It was
Sure.
traumatic in many ways. We had
Yes.
to make a whole lot of adjustments, but it was the best thing for me to do because, in fact, what I'm doing is reaching more people now,
Yeah.
and online rather than at a local church only.
Yes.
Mm.
So in many ways, your work continues in inspiring and supporting people, but just with a different medium. It
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah, yeah. You're right. It either it challenges,
Yes.
and inspires. It encourages and angers and so on. Because I deal with issues that they're my cartoons aren't. Some of them are just funny, but others are. I hope are more poignant, or maybe criticize something I think is maybe abusive or silly or manipulative or exclusive. So I challenge the church to live up to its mandate to be loving and inclusive.
Wow, incredible. And do you have an example of something that has got you into? I'm not asking to stir the controversy, but more from the point of view of how your work is inspiring and transformational. Where would you say you've been most powerful and successful in challenging and bringing new light to a situation?
Well, I do a lot of cartoons around the LGBTQ uh, reality.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are gay or trans or uh, whatever, and I don't like how the church, generally speaking, excludes them, marginalizes them, stigmatizes them. Yeah, you're showing a cartoon there of Jesus hanging out with the rainbow sheep and trans sheep, and these sheep cartoons are very popular.
Yes.
So that's probably one of the top 5 most controversial but most encouraging cartoons that I draw. People
Yes.
who believe LGBTQ should be marginalized or rejected or excluded or that they should change, they don't like those cartoons. But
No.
the gay trans community really, I hear every day from people who are grateful for those cartoons that express that they should belong.
Yes, and that is real ministry, which takes you full circle back to your roots, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Can I ask? I'm intrigued to know how did you become a pastor in the first place? We seem to have lost Em for the time being, hoping she can make the connection again. But she was in a field, and she did send me a picture of her new power supply setup, saying it will do. Maybe it hasn't. I don't know, but we'll keep an eye on the green room, and hopefully, she's literally in the green room, isn't she? She's in the green field green room this morning. But we'll keep an eye on that and hopefully have her back. But how did your spiritual journey begin? And can you tell us about the beginnings of your career? Is it a career? Your calling, and becoming a pastor in the first place?
Yeah, I began as soon as I was born. I mean, I was baptized as an Anglican as a child and grew up in and around the church. And so, I ended up in youth group and I was all in. Like, I was very devout, very, I was at the church all the time, not just on Sundays, but weekdays for Bible studies and then youth group. And I was getting involved in these things. And eventually I went to Bible college. That's where I met my wife, Lisa. Went to seminary, and I was originally headed towards the academic route to be a Bible scholar, but we ended up getting pregnant, couldn't afford continuing in my PhD. So I ended up going to the ministry side of theology, and I just sort of drifted into the ministry. It was kind of an accident, but fortunate one. And I served the church then as a Presbyterian minister for many years. And then I left the Presbyterian church, went into the Vineyard Church and different other denominations, planted a few churches. So I was very involved and I was all in, as they say, and contributed most of the years of my life to ministry in the church.
What is a Vineyard Church?
It's an evangelical denomination with a charismatic expression. So it's very, very laid back, very modern music, instruments, but it's that evangelical, sort of a Baptist Pentecostal mix.
Right.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, yes, okay. I have a sense of what that'd be. I think you had me at vineyard though, which doesn't mean necessarily in a vineyard.
Well, no, and Portugal has some of the greatest vineyards in the world, right?
It really does.
Yeah. So maybe people have heard of Hillsong. It would very much look like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the moment you got to where and forgive me for paraphrasing and tell me if this isn't quite right, but the institution that you were part of couldn't contain the size of your heart or inquiry or the expansion of your mind, and you felt that ministry wasn't for you anymore, and then you took this turn into delivering your message and making sense of life through being an artist and a cartoonist.
Well, this isn't just my problem. Like mine was kind of public because I was in the ministry and I had to resign and all that. But this is happening to a lot of people around the world, where they want to continue exploring or asking questions and discovering their own way to be spiritual, and it comes into conflict with the ideas, the goals, the agenda of the church. I mean, this is a very, very common problem. It's happening all the time to everybody, everywhere, where when they start believing their own thoughts or thinking their own thoughts and exploring their own way to be spiritual, it comes into conflict with what the church wants for them. And they have a choice. They can either stay and hide what they're going through, or they leave to continue on their own spiritual journey. And so that was my situation. Unfortunately, I was very public about it, and I had no choice but to sort of make an announcement and go on my way. But it was the best thing for me at the time, and it was the best thing for that church at the time, because it could no longer understand me and appreciate me as a pastor anymore, which is fine. And we just had to go our separate ways. I call it an amicable divorce.
Yes, or like the conscious uncoupling that Gwyneth Paltrow went through. And it's very interesting and quite the coincidence. I have a dear friend, Joe Hayward. I think he pronounced Howard Baptist, and went through a very similar process. I just don't think the institution could hold him and his aspirations, and it's been quite difficult. And as you say, it's not an individual phenomenon. This is, I think, perhaps something. If we go to Em now, you would recognise this, Em. I don't know how much of that part of the conversation, but the institution can't necessarily cope with some of the individual evolution, transformation, and growth that's going on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everyone grows at their own individual rates. So like I grew quite fast. My home is within the Christian church, and I kept looking and I kept outgrowing them and asking questions, and they don't always have the answer. And then I found the answers through the metaphysical version of Christ, where love is love. Whereas when they say love is love in some churches, they mean love is love, but their perspective of love, which isn't necessarily our perspective of love. And it's really it's where we're all at for our levels of consciousness, our levels of awareness. And when you love, like with David's work, when you love, there's no roles, it's just souls. So it's two souls meeting or three souls meeting or whatever. It's a soul to soul. Whereas when you stick roles in and start judgments, that's where the separateness, it occurs. Same with death. When people don't understand it or haven't got, they're coming from a place of fear, death and sexuality and gender and all sorts of things. It's all pretty much the same thing. It comes down to, can you love this soul? Can you meet this soul where they're at? And some of us can and some of us can't, So it's just, basically it, really, I think.
Beautifully
But
put. Thank you. Yeah, amen to that. So, if you could, for people who weren't with us the first time, we had this outing and launched the Departure Lounge. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Em? Reintroduce yourself and what your hopes are with the Departure Lounge, and let's see how David may be able to help in this regard as well. So, what are you hoping to do? You've got a new base for it, physically, literally. And you have been working, supporting people in death and dying. Please tell us more about that.
Well, I'm Reverend Em Mamabear McGowan. I'm a reverend in the metaphysical ministry, which is a non-denominational thing. We know that love is love, and therefore you can use whatever titles and things that you like, but love is love at the end of the day. And as long as we come from a place of love and meet people where they're at, we can serve people. So my inspiration is to love, serve and feed people. I love that, you know. And Ram Dass and Maharaji, they had it right. You know, it was all about meeting people where they were at. And with this, it happened with Share and Care, whereas I was just like a volunteer. Now I'm running the thing due to we lost Debs last year in December. So it's like just over a year since me and Debs did that video together where we were sharing what we wanted for the community, and we shared views where we want to bring love to the people of Portugal. We want to help people to feel right with where they're at, to come to a form of acceptance wherever they're at within living and dying process, whether it's grieving or whether it's grieving and bereavement, which is those that have gone already, or whether it's coming to terms with a serious illness or a terminal illness even. Sometimes it's just getting your shit in order. So getting your paperwork sorted, getting things right so that you know where you're at should the inevitable happen, because it's going to happen one day. You know, we can't avoid that one. So I'd like to, you know, take that further now. Now we've got a place where people can hang out, as well as contact me online. We've got a firm base now where people can just sit and be in nature and just really just ground. And if you want to sit in silence, come sit in silence. I do talk a lot, especially when I'm with Carl, but I'm capable of sitting in silence now. I'm happy to meet you in a lovely silent place and we can just sit and be together. You know, if you want to explore things, especially like suicidal thoughts and things like that, you know, who am I to judge? You know, I will sit with you. If you want to explore how you're feeling in different ways and different perspectives to different spiritualities, let's do it. You know, let's explore what you want to do, not what I want. Just come, talk, place without judgment, you know, no criticism, nothing like that. You just sit, we just meet as souls and discuss whatever it is openly.
What an offer that is. That there's some proper, to me anyway, some proper ministry and holding right there. What a coincidence, says James, coming together of incidents. Cue his quote this morning that he shared with us: "Love is not a mere sentiment; it is the ultimate truth at the heart of creation." So that is a very happy coincidence, and it seems to be what you're both pointing at this morning. I'd love to feature some of your cartoons if we could this morning, David, as well. This one, "Walk or Be Dragged." I think this is quite appropriate at the moment, isn't it? And goes back to what you said before, possibly about how the role of religion and spirituality is changing, can change in our life. Could you explain this a little bit? Because in the old days, all you needed to do was go to church and be a nice person, right? Now you have to get your shit in order, as Em was saying, and sometimes you need to have your ass dragged. What do you mean?
Well, I love Carl Jung, the depth psychologist, and one thing he said was walk your path or be dragged. And when I read that in one of his books, I immediately thought of the very popular Footprints in the Sand poster, where it says this, where there's two sets of tracks in the sand. This is where I walk beside you. And then there's one set of tracks, and this is where I carried you. But that's not how I experience my life. My life is more like the one I drew here, where it's two sets of tracks. this is where I walked beside you. And then the ones that are tracked with nail marks scraped along and says, this is where I dragged your ass. And
beautiful.
That's kind of how I've experienced a lot of my life, is walk my path or be dragged. Pretty accurate.
Yes. Yeah. And do you think this is becoming more the case for people? Like I said, there seemed to be a golden age where going to church might have been enough. We all had nice, cozy little lives in the American dream, possibly of the 1950s and 60s. And now there's quite a lot of ass dragging going on, isn't there? Are we having the carpet lifted and our faces rubbed underneath it?
Well, I think there's a lot of an increase in awareness and the necessity for being personally responsible for ourselves, and for us to become what I call spiritually independent. Like before, when I was growing up, and maybe with my parents, you just sort of went to church and you consumed whatever you were fed. Yeah. And but generally speaking, that still goes on today. But I think there's a lot more people, and I think actually COVID really increased this necessity where people are saying, you know what, I need to be responsible for myself. I need to take responsibility. I need to take the steering wheel of my own life, the master of my own destiny, and become sort of self-determining. And I can decide how to be spiritual. I think more and more people are realizing that now, and looking for resources in order to do that well.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. And then, of course, when you do that, you can face hostility, can't you? And the reactions of other people.
I promise you will. Yes.
Promise. It's a promise.
Yeah.
Okay. And Em might have something to say about this, because, and that's a big thing for somebody leaving the fold of their paternal religion, or even one they've it can even happen in a secondary way, can't it? This it can certainly happen if you leave the religious context of your family and community, and then some people do that anyway when they're growing up, don't they, and join another community, and then they'll find the same thing. This doesn't fit anymore. I want to be spiritual and independent. They might not even know that phrase that you've just given us this morning, but that might happen, and then it becomes awkward. But in a way, that's a good symptom, isn't it, on the journey of self-discovery? If the shoes don't fit anymore, there might be something good going on, rather than the finger pointing, and you shouldn't be doing that, exploring like that. What would you say to that, David?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think what's happening, where we're seeing a lot of people leaving the institutional church, it's because the church won't relax its grip on the control of people's spiritual growth. I really do think if the church loosened its hands and provided space for people to ask questions and to explore and maybe, go astray, and I think many more people would stay if they were provided that space. I know for a fact that if the church tried to understand me and to provide more space for me to do my personal spiritual explorations, I'd still be there. And that's I think that's the case with a lot of other people as well. If it's kind of like them, going through the stages of our growth as just human beings. When we get to be teenagers or young adults, we're expected to rebel against authority, question our elders, question the established orthodoxy and the status quo. And it's kind of expected, but it's also expected that hopefully eventually we'll come around and figure out a happy median between, where we can continue growing and still be a productive, compassionate, caring part of society. And I think church needs to provide that same kind of space for us to grow.
And it couldn't it? It really could, yes. Because in the way that the invitation you're making, Em, to people to come and sit and talk, if a teenager, let's say, had that space to talk and say, this doesn't make any sense to me, which is quite, let's face it, is quite a common teenage sentiment, isn't it? This is not making any sense. It doesn't seem to make you lot, my elders, very happy. I need to question this. If that were an open space in which that could be questioned, as you say, you could come to, in Shadowlands, where is it C.S. Lewis? He some of his sort of atheistic, agnostic colleagues are actually taking the piss out of him for praying. And he says, I don't pray to God because it changes God. I pray because it changes me. And in that same way, if you could ask questions in this space, it's that Em's talking about, sort of non-judgmental, open space, the questioning could change the listener as well as the person asking the questions, right? That would be quite a fair exchange. And that teenager could influence the elder in when they hear it, the life seen again through teenage eyes, that really affect the listener. Is that what this provide, Em?
I'm finding that it's our intuition is our superpower. We've all got it. We were born with it. It's the thing that keeps us safe. It's the one thing that guides us to God, or whatever you choose to call that higher being, or the divine, or our higher self, the purple-headed unicorn, whatever you call it. Our intuition takes us there, right? And to get in touch with our intuition, we've got to learn to trust ourselves and learn that it's, when we grow up in an environment and we're asking something because it feels wrong in our bellies, and we ask a question and they tell us we're wrong, we get sidetracked. We end up coming away from our intuition and what's right. And then we don't feel right, and we don't feel safe, and we can't feel secure. And we keep looking for this safety and security, which was with us all the time, that the conditioning out of us. So by providing a safe space for any human being, that they can, even an animal, but we're talking mainly humans here. And when you give that safe space for a person or a being to be and feel into their truth, that takes them the right way. We don't need to fix them. We don't need to change them. We don't have to give them answers, because everything's inside them. Yes. All we need to do is just be there and allow them to figure it out for themselves, asking the right questions, which aren't the judgmental kind, and it's just being present. There's so much can be said for presence, and it's like, as long as we allow people to feel into their truth, they'll find their intuition, they'll build the confidence, they'll build the self-esteem, and they'll take themselves to wherever they need to be for the highest good, which is nothing, who am I? Who are any of us? The highest good is for each individual person, and that's who we need to meet. We need to see people and meet them as individual people instead of that whatever, so we need to bridge that divide with love and coming from that true place, that heart-centered place.
Oh, fantastic. We could leave it there, couldn't we? She's done it, hasn't she, David?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Brilliant. Okay, we got Rebel Mama is in this morning. I only had to say her name earlier on, and here she appears. We've got a God Squad here, which is growing old disgracefully, not the other one we're talking about this morning, but all of the members of the original God Squad are now lined up in front of you. Rebel Mama here. Hola todos vocês. The chat is all over the place. I thought Gilda was on. We're all over the place. It's because we're opening our hearts and minds, Rebel Mama. It might look like that, but everything is fine. The chat is all over the place. I thought Gilda was on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. I need to check in more often. Muito bem obrigado, Rebel Mama. Gilda tonight, and at the moment we're talking about spiritual migration, aren't we? Rather than moving from one country to another, we're moving from one state of mind or spirituality to another. And who better to assist us in that than the naked pastor, David Hayward, joining us at 5:30, I think, Canadian time. And Mama Bear with her washing machine in the middle of nowhere in a field near Castelo Branco as well on the departure lounge, which brings us towards this talking about death and dying, of course. Another subject, I mean, maybe alongside sexuality, David, it's one of the big taboos for the church, is it not? And for human beings, generally speaking. What's your particular view on this? And have you got a good cartoon about it?
About death and dying?
Yes.
Oh, I would have to think about that, but I'm sure I do. I mean,
you've got this one, right? I really like this one as well.
Oh, yeah.
This is Jesus turning over the tables, of course, in the temple, right? Because I guess
that's the cartoon I used on the cover of my new book, Flip It Like This, where Jesus is teaching a woman who probably doesn't need teaching, how to set the table.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good. And now you just flip it. I thought it was an IKEA thing at first, but it's very appropriate to the times we're living in. It's the corporate takeover back then, which is, we have some resonance with that right now, don't we? And possibly in this revolutionary way, Em, I'm sure you'll have something to say on this. Revolutionizing the way we relate to death and dying. And I mean, David, you've got an amazing countryman in Stephen Jenkinson, right? Who talks a lot about death and dying.
Yeah.
What's your personal view on this, in where we're at as a society, as in the Western culture, if you like, on death and dying, and what's your insight about it from your experience as a pastor, and now as a more artistic viewer and humorous viewer of life for human beings?
Well, the thing that concerns me most, and what I'm most passionate about, is personal freedom. And I think what has happened is the church, theology, culture, there's so many aspects to this, have surrounded the whole suffering and death and struggle with fear. And there's so much fear surrounding it. So what I try to encourage people to embrace what is in the moment, like be here now. I think Ram Dass was mentioned earlier, and he wrote "Be Here Now." And if we could just sort of get past all of the theology and all of the theories and all of the all the stuff that's surrounding death and dying now, to just be here now, just be present in the moment. It eliminates a lot of the sort of baggage that's come along with the whole death and dying experience. Yeah. And I think that's why Ram Dass and other mystics and philosophers and quantum physicists and so on try to scrape away all of the stuff, all the baggage that's come along with death and dying, and just get it for us to simply be here now. And I know for myself personally, when I'm just present in the moment, a lot of that baggage goes, a lot of that fear goes. And I really appreciate what Mama Bear is doing, where you're just sitting with somebody in silence, just being with someone. That's what a good chaplain does. Somebody who's sitting with somebody who's in their final days or whatever, when they just sit with someone. I've done that with people. That brings just so much peace. A lot of the fear goes, and where you're just being present in the moment, it takes away a lot of the fear, and it can become even a beautiful transition for many people.
Yeah, well, so I'm feeling that. I am feeling that to be able to do that and not want to step in and fix and cluck and all the other things that can tend to go with this territory. I mean, that is just an amazing service to offer somebody. Mama Bear is doing that for us here in Portugal, everybody. And that's quite extraordinary. Thank you, David, for mentioning that. We have some input coming in as well. Please jump in, Em or David, if there's anything here that appeals to you that you want to respond to. Gary's here, Garvo. Great to see you last night at the wine club. I imagine he was quite interested in the vineyard ministry as well. Not what David meant, Gary. Your faith is something unique to yourself, as each person receives it in their own way. No one has the right to tell you what to believe in. Marcus said earlier on, he's following you on Instagram now, David, the Naked Pastor. The churches I belong to would never allow real questions. And isn't that an irony? The place where you would hope to be able to ask any question, they would never, in Marcus's experience anyway, never allow real questions. I think it was because they were afraid they didn't have real answers. Well, it's fear that drives their actions, and that's why I left, says Marcus. And continues, the sad part is that they had answers all along. They were just afraid to admit any this less than with 100% surety. Yeah, absolutely. It takes a brave minister, I think, doesn't it, a pastor, chaplain, to say, I don't know. And sometimes that's the right answer, isn't it? When I look at the history of the church, says Wayne here, historically it seems to be about control and order, completely opposite of free spirituality and free thought. And in contrast, a weather report. Rain has just showed up in these last weeks. Hope it will rain a lot more in the autumn and winter. Thank you, Antonio. Bob, Bon Dia GuMPers, my heart expanded so much, and the Bible began to make more sense when I began to expand my perceptions beyond a narrow, very narrow box. And back to Gary, sometimes faith is all you have, and your instinct guides you to that point. As you were saying, whatever happens after that will teach you something more than you knew before. Sitting with people, asking questions. James, when my clients ask me a question about themselves, I respond, that's a great question. What's your answer? Nicely done. Enjoying the discussion, but must go to an appointment. We're available on replay. Suze has left us in Canada as well, in Vancouver, and we'll watch later on. Amelie is here as well. Morning all, late to the discussion. It's great to have you here, Amelie. You can catch up, but I'm sure if you stay with us right now, you will hear some gems from both David and Em, some M's from the gem. Some gems from the M. Jesus had the right idea about the money lenders and how debt and finance can corrupt so deeply in life. Yes, just flip that table.
That's what is, just to jump in there, what he's saying about Jesus. Now, the metaphysical Christ is one that's coming from a place of love. He is the truth, the life, and the way. So he is showing people that when you come from that whole heart-centered place of peace and love, that's the place where you can find truth and freedom. That's the place that will lead you to the divine. That's the place that will take you forward. You don't have to do church to do Jesus. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to church and do all that things to accept Jesus into your heart. You can have them all up there, you know, on your altar. You can have Jesus, you can have whoever you want. All of it is the truth. It's just feeling into what's true for you and making sure it sits right in your belly.
Yeah, and you might even have one of these prints on your altar. Go to NakedPastor.com. We love that one as well. That's fantastic. Sorry, I left. I hit the wrong button. Just
it's all right. You're back.
I began practicing Buddhism in the 90s. One of the most interesting things is they address from the start. Yeah. And you lived in Korea, didn't you, Amelie? Made me feel much less apprehensive of death. How is the culture there around death? We shouldn't be afraid, but prepared. That's music to you, isn't it, Em? Since it happens at all. From Antonio, a little bit of housekeeping. Did you see my direct message in the forum from Antonio F for you there, Amelie? Okay. There was this other cartoon of yours, David, and I'd love to talk about this with both you and Em. We touched on it earlier on. The most sincere prayer. Okay. I think quite a few people are going through this at the moment, aren't they? Most people say they don't. Well, not most people. A lot of people, agnostic, atheistic people, say I don't pray. I think everyone prays all the time, right? And then when the chips are really down, they might even get down on their knees by the bed and say this, "Dear God, like what the." And there's a bit of that going on at the moment. If you cast your mind back, David, to your ministry days, what if you're the man you are now and you would appear back then, what would you be saying to people who are on their knees like this, saying, "WTF, God"?
Well, that's I've always encouraged authenticity and being real. I mean, whatever, if you have a God or, the universe or whatever you want to call it, like Mama Bear was saying earlier, the most important thing is for us to be authentic and real and honest, because those feelings are really there. Those fears, those struggles, those frustrations. And one of the things I've discovered with people who are leaving organized religion or leaving the institutional church or whatever, one of the first expressions of their freedom, their newfound freedom, is swearing. And I say, you know what, it's harmless. It's, nobody's getting hurt, and it's a wonderful way for them to express what they're really, really thinking, and to let it all out and sort of to vent. And, a good counselor, a good therapist, when they're listening to somebody, the last thing they should do is say, "Oh, you shouldn't talk like that," or "You shouldn't say that," because because we're just letting something out that's already there. It exists. So I love that cartoon. A lot of people love that cartoon, just because it's like, yeah, and you can read it in the comments all the time when I post it. It also comes on a mug, and I don't know how many mugs I've sold of that, but where people are like, yeah, that was me this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So nothing wrong with that. And to be there on your knees and to see what happens, be here now, like you said before. What would you say? I mean, what happens, Em, if people come to you and say, seriously, Em, what, what you're just there listening to that and letting it unfold?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, regards prayer, prayer is, I wanted to say this because I run an international prayer chain, and it's really important to say that it doesn't matter what religion you are. Praying is just you talking to a higher something. You don't even have to be religious to pray. You can pray to the fire. You can pray to anything. So in those moments of need, however you feel, it's so important to express yourself and allow it and to feel it. One of the things I'd sit with a person, if they're saying something and maybe they're flowing, and maybe they'll have a bit of silence, or we'll have a bit of silence. And I usually say, well, where are you feeling it in your body? How would that feeling like to be expressed? Is it worth maybe singing or drawing or painting or dancing, or what is it that floats your boat? Like, what makes your heart sing? What can you do to let this feeling that's in your body stuck there somewhere, how can you get it out? Do you need to give yourself a shake? You don't have to turn yourself into a human pretzel doing yoga. You can just give it a shake or dance it out.
Indeed.
Not that I'd dance it out. I just usually yell or get the drum out or something. But it's
what David was saying. It's already there, isn't it? That's quite taken me, David. When somebody says you should or you shouldn't say that, you can hear about how to express things. If it's come up, it's come up. It's there, isn't it? It exists. It's on the table. All right, so let me just I have a final question for you both. I'm just going to mute you up there, because I think that's feeding back a bit. Comments and questions. I've got a big question for both of you, and I'm just going to put you on the spot, but I think you can both cope with this from what I've heard so far. Our existence is so fleeting, and it's up to us to enjoy as much of it as we can in our allotted time. Entropy always wins in the end. And Amelie, despite living in Korea, can't really address the Korean approach to the life-death process. However, before Korea, I lived in Nepal, teaching at a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. The things you find out about people. Amelie, how lovely to discover that about you. And Antonio F. wondering if you're running from the police. Not this time, she says. Ha ha. Okay, so true, MB, Mama Bear, express it to the universe and sit with where is this hurt and let it go. If you never swear, it is far more effective and emphatic if you occasionally do. I think that's absolutely spot on, isn't it? It's lovely to hear your gran swear every now and then. I think that's when Granny swears. There is great emphasis, and that's what you're talking about there, I think, Jean. I agree, Jesus was for me the child of good, the embodiment of peace, love, kindness, and forgiveness. God, only one letter difference, same for devil and evil. Oh, good and God, I think you're saying there. And it's always entropy, says Andrew, who's just turned up and is asking the same question as we seem to be this morning. My final question to you both then this morning, and thank you so much for being here. Thanks for getting up, David, at an ungodly, unearthly hour over there in Canada. I think you have, in terms of prayer and hopes for mankind, I wonder what, we live in some interesting times, no question about that. And I mean that in the Chinese sense. What are your hopes for the future? How would you like this to end up? And if with that in mind, what would you say to people who are asking what the fuck question at the moment? So where would you like to see this going? And what, from your background as a minister, and you still are a minister, you're an artistic minister or a ministerial artist. What would you say to people who are struggling at the moment?
Well, my hope is, I think my hope is really grounded in in a feeling of a kind of certainty, is that love must win. And so I just believe that love must win. I think that as love progresses and as people grow into love and learn how to love, and more people love, I think we will see a backlash of a sort of an alt-right conservative reaction to that, where it wants to, that conservative wants to keep things the way they are. It might get louder and even more violent, which I don't like, but I have to remember that this is just a reaction to a greater reality, that love is growing, and that more and more people are signing up to be a part of the love movement. So I don't mean to sound hippie or weird or anything like that, but it's kind of like Martin Luther King Jr.'s saying the arc of justice is very long, and I really do believe that, and I just hang on to that hope and that certainty, in spite of the noise that generates in people who oppose it.
Yeah, and in a ministerial sense, people who just can't see that. I mean, what to remember that the arc of justice is long and that love does conquer all.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, thank you, David. Em, would you like to have a go at that? Just quite a big question this morning. Oh, I need to unmute you. Sorry, it was a bit of wind again. There you go.
Okay, well, David said a lot, and it totally resonates. And I bring in the Ho'oponopono, because for us all to get to the next stage, which is what I'd really like for humanity, we all need to learn to get some form of acceptance. We need to start learning how to take responsibility for our own actions, and we do that through love, through gratitude, and through forgiveness, and through stepping up and saying when we're, sorry if we get things wrong. We're human. We're going to get things wrong. It happens, So what? We get it wrong, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because each time we think it's wrong, it's really not wrong at all. It was exactly what we needed to do to learn the lesson to move forward. So to move forward for all of us, we just need to, just keep loving. The more we ask questions, the more we take ourselves back to the heart space. We can always ask, what would Jesus do in this situation?
Yes.
Without looking at the whole religious side. What would Jesus do? If there was a guy who was just pure love, what would he do? If there was a girl that was pure love, what choice would they make? Would they push people away? Would they cause division? The more of us that can sit with things and return to that heart space, the better this whole universe will be for all of us.
Well said. Thank you very much. And Amelie, hope you're right, David. And today in the US, people vote love and compassion. And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Is that it does seem a little bit of a shame that people's lives are premised on putting a cross in a box, although they use a digital method now, don't they? I think controversial digital methods, but it could be so much bigger in the way you're saying, couldn't it, than voting for that person or that person. We've really compressed and rationalized our outpouring or possibility for love, where we've compressed it down into such a narrow choice and such a divisive choice as well. And I love what you're saying there, Em, about what Jesus do. What would your grandma do? The grandma you loved and was your spiritual guide. These are the big questions. Let alone what the politicians might do if you vote for the right one. What would these great? Isn't that the interesting thing? The news is full of should we have this one or that one? A choice of politicians, not like what was it Ram Dass said? What was it Martin Luther King said? That seems to be absent, doesn't it, from the conversation? The great people of wisdom, where are they? And we've got these strange people who we are allowed to vote for, as it were. Maybe that comes back to what you were saying, Em, about taking personal responsibility for your life and not blaming politicians or hoping that politicians are going to make things right for us. I think you wanted to add something there, David.
Yeah, for me, it's very simple. Even Jesus compared justice or mercy to rain that falls on everyone, or the sun that shines on everyone, or maybe they didn't know about gravity then, but like gravity that pulls everything. Nothing's excluded, everything. So we need to think about love in those terms, that love isn't it isn't specific. It is indiscriminate. It's for everyone, and just like the rain, the sun, and gravity, and it's the people who want to hoard love for just a certain people, a certain group, a certain race, a certain color, a certain gender, a certain whatever. That's just not love, and it's very simple to me, and I hope that simple truth, grasps the mind of more and more people.
Oh, thank you, David. And I think resonating with what Gary's contributed as well, storms don't last forever in terms of the arc of justice and what seems to be going on at the moment. Sooner or later, the sun will shine, and so it is with life. Yes, it shines on all, not just the righteous. And James says, I will always, the so-called righteous, I always remember the sun is always there. Everything else is just blocking our view, including ourselves, AM. Love and compassion, not technically on the ballot. That's true. And David, you were saying to Amelie, you were also Amelie was in Nepal, and you're reading Mathieu Ricard's book on happiness there, and a Nepalese reference. That would be great then. A great new party, the Love and Compassion Party. And Gary says, when you see someone fall, you can choose to help them up or step over them, but it just feels so much better when you hold out that hand to help. That's what our guests have done this morning. Thank you for holding out your hands. David, thank you so much for getting up so early, for one thing. You are the Naked Pastor. Thank you for being here. People can buy your wonderful work at your website, nakedpastor.com. And Em will be back as our resident in the Departure Lounge. Em, as the host and space holder of the Departure Lounge, is there anything you wanted to add in these closing minutes?
Just take care of yourselves. You know where I am. If you want me, message. I'm only always a message away.
And you know where she is if you want to deliver a spoon to her as well. This morning, we need to get you a spoon, I think, by hook or by crook. You've got the knife and fork. You just need the spoon to complete the set, everybody. And great show.
It doesn't have to match or anything. A spoon of yours.
Any old spoon will do. One you whittled from an old piece of olive tree or something like that. Garvo might have something like that. Thank you so much, both, for being here. Really, it's been a lovely conversation this morning. Lovely to discover you and your work, David Hayward. Hope you'll come back. Hey, did you mention Portuguese wine? Have you been to Portugal, David?
No, I have not, but I've had Portuguese wine and pork. So.
Excellent. Okay, well, when you're here, I'd love to meet up with you, and we could perhaps get together in that field you see behind it.
Great.
Thank you so much. Om Shanti, Namaste. May the force be with you. All right, fantastic. So thank you very much. I don't want to say goodbye, but they've got to go right now. That's Em and David. What a show this morning. Thank you, Amelie, for that comment. And I think just a bit of quiet, reflective time in this last couple of minutes, because a lovely addition to the website recently has been the GuMPer gallery. Now, I'm just going to probably have a little bit of reflective silence and space for you to have a look at this with me this morning. I'm going to stop that share and start a new one and show you on our website the new feature, the GuMPer gallery, which is your featured photographs, a few of which have come in this morning. Those amazing photos that we had yesterday of the moon. Anyone else feeling that right now? But the GuMPer gallery will be on your screen in just a minute here, and we can just have a little bit of a chill, can't we? This is like your show and tell, bring and share, and we can just sit and have a look at these lovely photographs that have been sent in, and more will come for the GuMPer gallery here. Here it is on the screen. It's on an automatic slideshow. Let me put it as big as I can on the screen. Who doesn't like to have it as big as they can on the screen first thing in the morning? Have a look at these photos, if you will, folks. Just leave them on there, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. While we're looking at the photos, actually, I did say silence, didn't I? And just like Em, I can be quiet from time to time, but I just want to let you know the highlights for the rest of the week. We have we're talking to Gilda tonight, of course, at 9 o'clock, Migration Tuesday feature. And then at 11, we're talking to Antonio Barbosa, and that'll be a reaction to Portuguese politics, particularly the Premier's comments about the golden visa. Tomorrow, we talk to Glenn and Glenda, that American couple who were featured in the Portugal press recently, the English-speaking Portuguese press, and Portugal News, Portugal resident. We'll talk to them. Doug might drop in as well. Then Katia Lima is back on Thursday, Indie Portugal Thursday, and it's
Felamena Friday.
Felamena Friday on Friday as well. So stay tuned for the rest of the week. We'll have an after-show party on Friday as well. Portugal Club tonight, of course, with Antonio Barbosa. So let me just put this big on the screen, and I'll say goodbye to you. Leave you with these lovely images of Portugal. Keep them coming on 913-590-303. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.